r/Askreddit. What's the weirdest thing you have ever walked in on? When my kids were very young, 4 and 3 years old, I would bathe them together. One day I left the room for a minute and on my way back I could hear cackling laughter coming from the bathroom. I sneak up to the door and see the 4-year-old on all fours, pointing his butt at the 3-year-old, who was behind him with his index finger extended as if he was going to poke his brother right in the butthole. The 4-year-old said, "Go on. Touch it," and as the 3-year-old moved his finger closer, the 4-year-old farted. They both cackled like mad. They didn't bathe together after that. Walked into a classroom. Found out that a 13-year-old had my staff photo as his desktop picture. He wasn't one of my students. I work in a hotel, and a guest asked for a coffee maker to be brought up as we didn't have them in every room. I knocked on the door a couple of times, as we're supposed to do, and didn't hear a response, so I cracked the door open a bit to see a stark naked man with one of those leather-looking dog masks. I just froze for what felt like 8 minutes and closed the door. I just left the coffee maker outside the room. Writing that last part reminded me of this, so I guess my reply is a bit of a 2-for-1 special. I walked into the employee bathroom, which do lock, so if the handle turns I assume it's free and clear, once, and walked in on a co-worker completely naked, sitting on the toilet with all their clothes strewn about the bathroom floor. He and I haven't made eye contact in about a month and a half. I went to the wrong house party across the street from the one I was invited to. Everyone, 6 to 7 people, was super chill and included me even though they had no idea I didn't belong. It was actually a lot more genuine than where I went after I figured it out. I have 8 siblings, so I've seen far too many things I wish I'd never seen. The first one that comes to mind is the time I went into the kitchen and my little brother was on all fours. He was wearing nothing but a pink belt around his midsection and a pair of my mother's shoes, face down in the cat's food dish, eating its food. My son trying to look at his butthole with a webcam. My mom walked in on my friend and I playing with each other's boobs. Not in a romantic way. We were laying on our sides and noticed our boobs got all squished. So we stuck a hand in between each other's and made them clap. Mom walked in, saw us, and said okay then. I tried to explain and she put her hand up and said, "I don't even want to know." Then she shut the door and walked out. 2 intoxicated homeless folks, male and female, getting it on underneath a tree on the college campus I work security at. It probably could have been narrated by David Attenborough for how raw and wild it was. Probably my dad blow drying his pubes in the mirror. My mom absolutely lost it cracking up and I can never get the image out of my brain no matter how hard I try. Oh boy, do I have a good one. My mom and I had a huge joint party for our 15th and 50th birthdays with tons of our friends over at our apartment's clubhouse. I left the main scene to take some of my pals up to my room to show them my pet guinea pig, Squeakers. I opened the front door to my apartment with my friends in tow, and opened it without knocking because hey, it was my fucking house. To my surprise, when I walked in, the living room was full of buck-ass nude old ladies. Now, I knew that my mom had joked about getting her friends together to take calendar girls pictures for her 50th. I did not know that this was the appointed time and place for said photo shoot. But there they were. My mom and her best friends, some of whom were moms of friends, one of whom was my former teacher, in their birthday suits carrying around big fake flowers and feather boas and cupcakes and shit, taking pictures of each other. Not a bra nor panty in sight. I stood there dumbstruck for a second, when one of the ladies waved at us and called out, "Oh hi there girls. Come on in." I made a weird panicked noise, slammed the door, and sat on my welcome mat paralyzed with a hysterical uncontrollable laughing fit for like 5 minutes. They still apologize about it 5 years later. Younger brother had a chapped butthole and my mom was powdering it for him. He was not a baby. Was at a friend's place with around 6 to 7 of our other friends for New Year's and had to take a shit. Walked into the bathroom to discover my one friend fingering our other friend's mom. Proceeded to call him a mother ER for the next 2 months. Walked in on a girl's father standing idly in front of the refrigerator in nothing but a pair of aged white briefs. I was 16 and not very socially experienced, particularly regarding dads in underwear, so I panicked and held up my hand to shield my own view and said something like, and walked back into the garage. Her parents made me go home and I never went back to her house again. One night me and my roommate watched Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny, and we specifically laughed at how funny the cock push-ups were. A few days later I walk into the dorm and his pants are down and he's flat on his belly with his arms reaching forward Superman style. He gets startled and nervously yells, "Oh hey, what's up?" and pulls up his pants. Pretty sure he was attempting cock push-ups. At a party with a bunch of friends. Door to the living room is closed. Open door. Half of my friends in attendance are engaged in a wild X-rated party. Closed door. Host of the party walks by, looking really annoyed. I think he's going to put a halt to the proceedings, but he just opens the door and tosses a box of condoms into the room, and closes the door again. Not me, but a story from my ex. When I was working at a grocery store, my ex worked in produce and we had a co-worker that was really nice but something just seemed kinda off about him. Well, one night, my ex is walking back to their back room and this guy is just standing there, his back facing the wall and his pants were down around his ankles. My ex says, "Hey buddy, what are you doing?" And the guy completely freezes. Then puts a watermelon down to the side. My ex notes the watermelon has a hole in it. He was effing a watermelon. Before the beginning of my second year of college, my roommate transferred to another university, and housing replaced him with some random transfer. He ended up being a total pain in the ass. He would play on his Xbox in the room at 3 a.m. while I was trying to sleep, while even talking into his mic, set multiple alarms at 4 a.m. and not get up, etc. After a pretty intense argument at 5 a.m., I spent the week couch surfing and began looking for somewhere else to live. Fortunately, there was an empty room in another dorm and I made the arrangements to change rooms. I spent the night in my new room, and walked over to my old dorm the next morning to move out before heading home for fall break. I was nervous about my old roommate causing a scene, especially since my mom was coming down to help me move and take me back home. Instead, I walked in on him standing over my bed. He was whacking off over my Arduino kit and differential equations notebook. You know that game where you flip a water bottle and try to land it on its base? I walked into the lobby at my dorm to see my friends playing that game with a large dildo. I joined in and suggested we give it googly eyes and stick it on the ceiling, which is where it now lives. Had just gotten to my ex-BF's home, was having tea with my grandma before. Opened the door, he was having a house party I didn't know about. People were wearing latex underwear, flogging each other and dicks hanging around. A couple was effing violently on his bed, the husband of the girl who was getting railed was watching. My ex-BF was drunk and crying in the bathroom. Very confusing. Was at a youth Bible study in the basement at my friend's house. The adults were having a Bible study upstairs. Went upstairs for a glass of water, heard chanting, walked into the living room to see 4 or 5 adults miming something like pulling a spear out of a kneeling person's back, whose forehead was dripping with oil. I tried to disappear but my buddy's mom sat me down later and explained they had anointed their depressed friend with cedar oil and prayed over him, only to learn he had spiritual weapons inside him that Satan had placed there. So, they all had to pull it out, which is when I walked in. This same Bible group used to walk around our high school in the middle of the night praying for God to awaken us all. I know this because this mom invited me to come along. Charismatic Christianity is wild. My friend sucked another one of my friend's wonger for a couple of freezies. Not even the big ones. Walked into a McDonald's bathroom while getting a coffee on my way to work last year. As I opened the door, this lady was just sitting on the toilet in the stall directly in front of the door, taking an absolutely violent poop, while purposefully holding the stall door open, and she would not break eye contact until I left her line of sight. She finished up, washed her hands and left. I swear to God, this was not some foreigner that maybe doesn't understand basic customs or whatever, it was just some 35 to 50-year-old white lady in Canada? Maybe it was a power move but like, if she wanted the MCD's bathroom man she can have it. A friend of mine was sitting with his toe in his mouth for at least 10 minutes. I guess he didn't hear me coming into his room. I just walked away. When I was 11 or 12 I walked in on my older brother whacking off. His back was turned so luckily all I saw was his butt. As I walked in on him I saw his mattress falling back into place, so being the curious child I was, I went to see what was under his mattress on a later day when he wasn't home. I was hoping for nudie mags, cause growing up in the 90s in a religious household meant it was super hard to come by. But no, what I found was much, much worse. I found about 4 dozen little zip-top snack baggies full of his liquid. I usually visit my grandfather on Sundays. His wife passed away in 2014. In 2016 he was diagnosed with cancer. He refused to move closer to the rest of the family so we could keep an eye on him. So once he started getting worse, we had a nurse visit him 3 times a week to check on him and take care of his medical needs related to his cancer treatment. So as I was saying, I usually visit him on Sundays. I went to his house as usual. It was like any other day. I spoke with him about an hour before I got there. I'll remember this day for the rest of my life. I arrived, walked into the living room and called for my grandpa. There was no answer. Checked the kitchen, he wasn't there. Checked the backyard, not there either. At this point I'm super worried. I go to his room. I open the door. I'm looking at my 84-year-old grandpa getting ridden by the nurse. That man is my fucking hero. I miss you, Grandpa. 1932 to 2017.